So let's start with this question then. What is awakening? There are, as I was saying right from the start, there are so many versions of what it is to be awake now. And the word is overused. And also used, many are using it as to, with this whole pandemic story, and using it in many ways, and minimizing what this actually speaks of, what it actually speaks originally. Did you know that many go through this whole lifetime without even considering the miracle of existence and the miracle of being? Did you know that actually the majority of humans go through life right to the end without even stopping to consider that? Yeah. And yet there are a good portion of beings who inherently know. There's a knowing, like for myself, right from childhood. I mean, it was pretty obvious that this can't be what's going on. This can't be what they're telling us. And, you know, I could see right through. I just didn't see any point in going to school or doing that whole thing that they were telling us, like conditioning us into, because we are all born into duality, the environment of duality. We're born into right and wrong, good and bad, higher and lower, better or worse, like and dislike, all of this that comes with duality. We're born into that. And quite soon we're conditioned into the name we're given, identifying with that name. So it's not like unusual that we become identified with that. It's part of the human journey, right? And it's confirmed everywhere by everyone that you are this person, this is your name, and your world begins to be based on the story happening in your mind that revolves around this thought of, I am this person and this is building. So every experience you have is then recorded in the memory body, and the identification with that is set in, and the overlooking, there's an overlooking of what you are without all that. So like I said, for myself, it was very, very young that I just couldn't believe that we could be like miraculously born, like billions of humans all over this planet, just to go to school, get the thing, get the qualifications, get the job, get the thing, get the house, get the family, get the thing, just to grow old and die. How can it be, you know? And it looked pretty, I think that the circumstances of my childhood really gave the conditions for me to really think like, this is so out of order, there's got to be something else, you know? So I was questioning that quite early. And for many of you, that might be the same. And for some, it's just coming like in so many various different ways. It can be a big shock. It can be like you're living that life and a depression comes in once you start to find out that, your relationships fall apart and keeps going wrong, like the promise of meeting the right one and that being the thing that makes you happy and fulfilled. And suddenly it's like you're starting to realize that, well, I don't mean that like it's 100% for everyone. Maybe you met the first one, fell in love and lived your dream. I don't know. I'm not saying it's not possible, right? But commonly the dream is shattered, right? Which ignites a search to like look for, where is it then? What's the answer? Where is it? What's, where is this true happiness or fulfillment? Or it can come in so many variations. But whatever way it comes, at a certain point, you are shaken, you are pulled, you are called. And that calling might just be that you suddenly feel attracted towards reading books that start speaking about the present moment, or you get attracted to, often it's suffering, so often it's depression, so often it's something that's kind of rocked your world, but not always. It can be that you just get attracted towards, I picked up a book of Krishnamurti in my teenage years. Didn't have a clue what he was talking about. But life would continue to disillusion me, because we are born into the illusions of the dreams, and we get disillusioned, and that might ignite the call to ask then, where is it? What is it? Like, what's going on here? And that first calling is really the beginning. It's the beginning, even though you don't have a clue. Slowly, you may start to gather information where there's like confirmations. Something rings a bell and you go, wow, I know what that's speaking about. Go there. And you start following that call. But it starts inside of you, or in a conversation that touches something inside of you. And you are called. And you go. Even if your life is still a complete shambles, whatever. But that is really the beginning. But still, you believe there is a seeker created. You are in the experience of a person who's seeking. This is one version I'm giving. It's not always, nothing is fixed ever, right? So you're in the experience of creating a seeker who's seeking something like freedom or liberation or this thing called awakening. But there's a seeker identity developed, right? Because you still believe at that stage that you are this person with this past storyline, and you are still identified fully with that. And within that story, you are now seeking freedom. Right? So this is a stage. And of course, there's nowadays so many teachings and teachers and ways that this is being spoken that the intellect picks up a new language and starts to repeat that language. And it's still within the story of me, right? And then at some point, something may happen in your life, and that can be a big, shocking thing. It can come in a big, shocking thing that ramps up the volume, like really ramps it up, where you need to know the answers. This is becoming the most important thing. Like something in your life might put you in that mode where you are more disillusioned by things, and something makes you like, nothing else matters. This is what matters. And and you start to notice that the life as you know it is starting changing. You can't relate with people in the same way. You can't relate to people who are not kind of, you lose the interest. Like in my own case, I can say I lost the interest for constant partying and hanging out with people just like for the sake of it, and lots of things started falling away, right? And this was before I ended up in jail. This was before I was already like pulled into locking myself in my room, like I just wanted to look at myself. I just wanted to know what was going on here. How to really, like, I became interested only in knowing what is true. Right? And then when that becomes like the most important thing over everything else, it kind of speeds up. And you can't stop it. It has a momentum. It's going by itself. Even if you have these habits and you have these patterns going on, and you still like to kind of numb out and do stuff to get away from the pain of life, or even if those patterns are still going on, there's something in you that won't stop on this track. And you can't do anything about it. Recognize that? So for me, at the time that I was, I got all these cold shivers going all over me because I feel your recognition. Whoa, whoa, we are not separate. When we are rested in this depth, the experience is that I am you and you are me. I know you inside of me. It is one consciousness, a universal consciousness, having individual experience. Nevertheless, when we are rested in universal consciousness, we know each other intimately as that one. So, yeah, I was at the point of saying in my own story, because my story is still here, that's the paradox. I am universal consciousness. I am you, you are me. I am in the direct experience of that, while at the same time I'm telling you my story. There is no separation in that. Right? So I'm including my story, which comes from memory and is nowhere to be found, and yet it is. It is what gives me whatever is here to be able to facilitate this right now and take you to your depth because of the story that has been lived. There is no separation in these levels. There is no separation anywhere. But you cannot get that, and you cannot understand that here. It's not possible. You can only know it in your depth. You can only know it directly and intimately in who you really truly are, deeply. So in my story, I was at a point where I still had all these patterns playing out. I still was now and again going to parties and using a little bit of MDMA or LSD or those things that were giving me experiences of glimpses of this. But I knew that I'd had enough, and I knew that I didn't want it anymore. I knew that I was done with that life. And I'd already been in meditation for a few years. I was already doing groups. I'd already surrendered my life to a spiritual path and taken the name Ananta. But I still had all these patterns, see? And somehow these patterns were still running my life, and there was a pain in that. There was a pain that I just wanted to give all of myself to this truth and just open and expand and know what it is that my master at that time was speaking of. I want to know more than anything. I want that. Yet the patterns and the behaviors were still belonging to some inherited dysfunction, which carried in it self-abuse. Recognize any of that? And I didn't know how to stop it. And there was a deep calling inside of me, a screaming, almost a screaming, stop this world, I want to get off. You know, it wasn't doing it anymore for me. It wasn't doing it. The best sex, the best parties, the best life, freedom. I was traveling, it wasn't doing it. There was this scream, this deep scream. Just silence, just stop, just enough. And it wasn't very long before I was raided, and in my apartment happened to be some LSD belonging to a friend, actually. Well, there's a story behind that. But it was just there 5 days. I have no idea how they knew, but 15 guys or so came and got me and raided the place and handcuffed me and took me off the world that I knew. And long story short, I was then in solitary confinement. I was sentenced to 3.5 years. And there I was, finding myself in a cell with no one, in a prison that the rules were silence. Be careful what you ask for. Be careful how you ask for it. Yeah. So anyway, that completely broke down who I thought I was, who I identified as. And I'm not going to talk about that experience. Because you don't need that experience. You need the experience you're having. Exactly the experience you're having. So, long story short, after release, I could not find anyone in here, right? I was just only aware. Because when you don't relate for a few years, if you don't relate, if you're no longer in any role to relate to anything, then what is left? So anyway, I would say that whatever it is, awakening, that shift took place there. And when I came out, oh my God, through the doorway of relationship, triggers all of the past unfinished business all started to return and arise, right? And I don't have a clue what to do with that. Although I woke up to what I am. I woke up, I didn't know that then, I couldn't name that then. But I was shifted. Identity as a separate self was gone. So then, all this stuff's arising. How can it be? And it's playing out and being experienced in me as if it's me. But I can see through it. I can see it's not me. I can see that's not me. And yet I'm feeling it all and I'm experiencing it all. But I can see through it and I don't believe in it. So that's the next stage. That's the next stage when you can see through it. You can see it all. You experience it all. You can see through it. And there are moments of identification with that. Moments when it really does feel like it feels like you, and you can't anymore, like that experience of great freedom and vastness and openness, pure awareness. It's like, where's it gone? Where's it gone? Because now you're fully in this persona. For me, it was not like that, but I'm speaking like that because so many people who have sat with me, I see that's what they go through. The next stage is that there's the experience of sometimes I know who I am. When the triggers and the pain returns to be met, it's coming for liberation. It's coming for the true meeting. It's coming to be truly met. And in that true meeting, there's an entering into the body. It's no longer an understanding that's here. An intellectual understanding and knowing that is here. Because the knowing in the first beginning is here, the recognition is here, but it's not in the body. The body is still very much running on yesteryear. And it cannot do different because it hasn't been updated. It's not a failure. It hasn't been updated, right? So the identification of the seeker can imagine there's a failure. Like all this stuff comes up and it overtakes and it overwhelms and it's like, and where there's a seeker identification within that, it can be then believed in the belief that, oh, I had a moment and I lost it. And then trying to get back there away from this experience. And then at some point, there's a listening to some transmission or reading a book or getting it all by yourself. That, that's what that teacher or that book or that thing meant when they said, no identification with identification. Even though this experience is happening fully and it's tearing me apart, within this, I can see the mechanisms. I can see all how it's put together. And I can see. And if I can see, I am not that. That's not who I am. That's arising in what I am. And a meeting can happen, a true meeting where this pain can finally come home in your love. In your love, in the love that you are. in the one that you are, it can come home, it can return. Yeah. And in that way, there's no fear of experiencing the body. Even fear is to be experienced. And in that way, you enter the body, you enter the experience. Here you are, knowing yourself, even if what you're meeting is completely doesn't look like it's awake or nothing like that. Here you are in there, meeting it. Yes, you're here, you're present, you're meeting it. Now the body is getting a message. The body is being, I'm getting all these cold shivers again. Because you're answering me, you're answering. This is recognized, seen. Yes, you enter the body. And this is what does it speak about? Embodiment. Embodiment. You begin to embody the truth that you see. You begin to walk with the truth that's coming alive in you. This is part of the process of awakening. So it starts to come in the body. And you begin to become an embodiment of what you realize. And it's not an easy process often. It's not always the case. Some people just only ever experience bliss. But it's few. There comes a moment. There comes a moment where nothing, absolutely no experience can convince you of being separate from anything. Even if you don't see in the moment of experiencing re-identification, even if you don't see it, you still know the truth of what you are. Even if you're not experiencing it, because what this is a knowing, it's not an experience. And knowing is deeper than experience. So you could be experiencing whatever, but you're still knowing yourself. Nothing can take that away. You're home. You're home. But that doesn't need effort. It doesn't need effort. You just are what you are. You are recognizing life itself as what you are. Life itself. And when you recognize that, without any doubt, you recognize every living being is that. There is no separation anywhere. So it begins with you, and then you begin to know every other as yourself. Even if you still have the experience of separation in an argument or some kind of patterning playing out, even if that thing happens in your experience, you still know that what is looking is seeing itself. There's nothing that can ever take that knowing. And it doesn't need effort. It's effortless being. So this is a process. And what I can say to you, right? I've been walking with this for, I got out of that jail 25 years ago, right? And this embodiment process has been happening since then. And I have to say to you that it's still the beginning. It is an endless deepening, an endless deepening. endless deepening. How could what this whole cosmos and beyond is, and whatever brought that into existence, how could that be squeezed into a little tiny body and realize everything all at once? It's not possible, right? So it's endless revelation of what is realized. It's revelation being revealed, being revealed, being revealed by itself to itself. And this is so beautiful, even though it can be so painful. There is no other life to live. Living awake requires so many of those old mechanisms to drop. All falls away, all of the sneakiness, any kind of sneakiness. You become an honest, true human with yourself and with all. And so there's a lot in the unconscious that belongs to mechanisms that are born from beliefs, deeply held beliefs that this little child has taken on. Through this lie of separation, these deeply ingrained beliefs that are in the system, for example, the belief that I'm not good enough, or I don't belong, or I'm not worthy, or I can't trust the world, I can't trust anyone, or these deeply held beliefs that can be working unconsciously in these mechanisms that can be playing unconsciously into your relative world, that still have within them behaviors that are rooted in those beliefs, and it all needs to come conscious. And it's happening. The more that you are given to truth, and the more that you are willing to see what's really going on through the play of relativity, it becomes conscious, it comes conscious. And the more it comes conscious, the more and more and more all of this comes conscious, you start operating from a super consciousness instead of unconsciousness. You start operating from universal intelligence without being blocked by these mechanisms.